alternate project. And so he sent me the form for that, and so that's something that Susan and I can work on, because she's got all the library information. So you have to apply. He said, go ahead and start the paperwork on applying for an alternate project. Well, we look to see if we've actually denied it or not. So we have to.
So they don't know if they denied it.
They are looking in their Chicago office. See, they've had a change of personnel. You know, the main guy that we had here got bumped up to Chicago. So they got a new guy that we have now as our contact. So those two guys have to talk together, and they get together and decide and figure out who did what when, because there's a transition where one was on his way out and one was on his way in. There were a couple other projects where they did not assign PW numbers. The flooring project where we bored the water and sewer under the river, they told us by email that they were going to pay for it, but we didn't get a PW applied to it. They just have to do paperwork so we can get the money back on that. That's the type of thing. The engineers are the ones that did all the work with FEMA on getting that approval for that boring project. They are the ones that oversaw the whole project, so they can easily talk to FEMA about that project because they got it approved in the first place, verbally and by email. It's FEMA's didn't write it down, or didn't do the right paperwork for it. That's all that is. So there's a lot of ways where those engineer guys are going to be able to just deal directly with them and say, remember, you told me we were going to do this, or whatever.
Light a fire under their shoes.
So yes. That, you know, that paperwork stuff could easily be handled by the engineering firm.
Get them going.
Okay? Is that what you want to direct me to do?
We need a motion.
I'll make that a motion if you need one,
Motion to what?
to get the engineers going. Light a fire under their shoes, as Ted said.
Mr. Chaglo, have you had any comment on this? I'm not gonna recognize a motion right now.
Cost. You need to get a request for proposal from them to firm up cost and what this is gonna cost to have them do this. My concern would be if they were involved in getting, for example, the boring project approved, and there was some error in that you didn't have a PW number assigned, that's something they should finish for us if they've been paid for that. You know, those types of things. If it was a project they were involved in and something didn't get finished on their end to tighten it up, they should fix that. You know, those are the types of things you need to follow up on. Now, would I be comfortable with you saying just tell them to get going and get all these things done without knowing the cost? No, I'm not comfortable with that. But BDM did have a person here. I was still city attorney during the flood. They did have a person documenting things, and his role was to document and so that the project worksheets could be filled out. So the question is, if they haven't been filled out, why hadn't they been filled out? And whose responsibility was it to do it? And if the city paid someone to do it, then they should finish it. I don't know those answers, but if you have a spreadsheet of the projects, and if BDM's involved with sewer, and Otomo's involved with street and utility, then they should be responsible for those respective PW worksheets. Now, community center doesn't fall under either one of those, so that might be something that might be a little different. Liquor store might be different. You know, those things might need some staff input, but if you can eliminate those specific items, street, utility, sewer, eliminate all those project worksheets and make the engineers that we hired finish their work, what's left? And I suspect what's left is what we need to finish. So I guess that's a summary of my concern. Get a request for proposals from them to finish their projects that they were involved in, and then a request for proposal to finish projects with FEMA that they weren't involved in. What's it going to cost you?
Their job wasn't necessarily to do the paperwork to send in for the reimbursement from FEMA.
Who did that?
That came out of here, out of this office.
Who?
Me.
Okay. So we should have a file, and should be able to work backwards from that.
But there are some things where I would need to know from the engineer which invoice goes to which project that was completed for which PW.
But we paid them for that project. Now, if they just have to answer a question about this invoice that we paid, this project that we paid you to engineer, where does it go? I mean, that isn't something that you should necessarily have to pay for again.
But they were not, we didn't hire an engineer for all the PW work. Some of it was local, like we hired Norm's Electric to do something, or we hired
That's why I
somebody
said
else,
that
you know.
you could break it down by their respective responsibilities and eliminate those projects that they were hired to do, and then get a request for proposal to see what it would cost you to hire them to finish the balance. There's a significant difference, I suspect, from what an engineer charges for what an administrative person may charge.
Well, and they have lower level engineers too.
But we
where
don't
they
know.
wouldn't
My
necessarily-
point is,
Yeah.
we don't know. We don't even have an idea what that cost may be, and certainly I'm sure they could give that to you.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure they would.
But you do need to get something done on that. I did speak with your auditor as well, and he wants that to get moving significantly by the end of the year.
Is the moving or timeline?
He wants someone in charge that is making adequate progress towards getting those things taken care of.
Yeah, they'll be back in January to do the audit again. I'd like to see as much of that collected as possible. At least make sure it's all been requested.
But January
Well, and
1st.
These guys don't have to start from scratch. I mean, they know what was supposed to be done and what has been done, so they'd be able to take off and just do it. But do you want me to find that price to do it then? Yes?
I'm gonna change your motion to a request for proposal.
I
From
changed that to request for a proposal.
For the cost to follow up on
Follow up on
FEMA
all the PW.
PWs. Okay?
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Dahl, second by Mr. Robertson. Any questions, any discussion?
As Terry says, if it's a matter of just following up on the work that has already been done, are we asking for the administrative help to accomplish what's already been done? Does that make sense?
Well,
I'm not sure it made sense to me.
It's the
It's,
scope of
if you've got
scope of the work.
if you've got the project worksheets already, and it's a matter of them completing and signing off on, yes, that work was done, bang, it goes in. Like Terry says, what additional expense do we really need to attach to it? Other than staff?
Well, there may be some where they're gonna have to look back in the records to find out, because it, you know, some of this might have been done in '07 even, you know, to try to figure out, when did we do that, or was it part of
But
another project?
wouldn't that
or
be
whatever.
on the project worksheets?
No.
Wouldn't that all be documented?
Some of those project worksheets are just, it's, you know, FEMA is a world of its own, honest to God. It's unlike any accounting system or any bookkeeping system or any record keeping system ever. They just do things their own way, and it's unlike anything I've ever run across before. But that's why it's difficult to work with it, because it's just, they do things their own way. I mean, their definition of what work needs to be done, and then they apply a dollar value to it. But the scope of the work is what the engineers will understand, what was written in that PW, you know. It's not necessarily something someone who's not involved in the utility will understand, you know what I'm saying?